This is a list of 5 of my favorite biographies, not certainly the greatest of all time, but just my personal favorite books that I have read, biographies or autobiographies I have read that have impacted me, that I remember reading and that I remember thinking that was really awesome. Some of them I've actually gone back and read more than once. And so I want to share that list with you today. The first one is a sports book. It is called The Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig in His Time by Ray Robinson. It's a pretty short book. It is, in fact, it's less than 300 pages. So if you want to read this one, it's a fantastic book. If you don't know anything about Lou Gehrig, he played Major League Baseball, played for the New York Yankees from the early 1920s until the late 1930s, and his career is tragically cut short. If you don't know the story, I won't spoil it, but you have probably heard of Lou Gehrig's disease, or ALS. It's really, I guess, might say the spoiler there, what cuts his career short. But a fantastic individual, fantastic baseball player, and someone that this biography does a tremendous job telling about this legendary baseball player from the 1920s and 1930s. Really enjoyed this book. I know a few people who have ALS, and so reading that book, it really sheds some light, I guess, on that for me. So if you're looking for a relatively short sports biography to read, The Iron Horse by Ray Robinson would be a great one if you can pick it up. You can probably find a used copy online pretty cheap. The second one is rather different. It certainly kind of stands out, I suppose, among these 5. And it's also, I guess, one of the newer ones on this list, but it's Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, came out in 2020. Really enjoyed this book. It is very different because it is an autobiography. He writes it. It's kind of like a journal in some ways. It includes notes of his that he wrote in his own hand. It's also, though, a book that also pulls in, it's a self-help book in some ways. It's a philosophy book in some ways. So a very unique read. If you're looking for a biography or an autobiography that's just different from what else is out there, Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, you may find that very interesting. It's also a pretty short book as well. Now, the next 3, the first 2 were short. Next 3, not so much, but very, very good. This one is maybe my favorite one in this stack, is A. Lincoln, a biography by Ronald C. White, Jr. Abraham Lincoln is my favorite president of the United States of America. Just what he had to deal with, what he endured as president, what he got the help to get the country through is truly phenomenal. And this book, some biographies tend to be a lot more, I guess, scholarly in the way that they're written. This one, a really, really good read, written in a very conversational way, enjoyable read. Ronald C. White does a very good job as a storyteller. Biographers that are not good storytellers, but maybe good compilers of factual information, those tend to be full of good information, but much harder to read. Ronald C. White does a great job of compiling information, but then in telling a good story as well. So A. Lincoln by Ronald C. White, Jr., fantastic read about perhaps the United States' greatest president of all time. Now, we go from perhaps the greatest president of all time, as far as the United States of America goes, to maybe one of the most unknown presidents of all time in United States history. And this is the newest book in this stack. President Garfield, From Radical to Unifier, C.W. Goodyear. This book came out in 2023. I read it recently. Very good book. I always jump at a chance to learn about people, especially U.S. presidents, that maybe I don't know that much about. And this fit the bill for that. It talks about his time. Really, he was a fantastic member of the legislature, of Congress, of the House of Representatives. Fantastic at negotiating, at getting things done in Congress. And then sort of unexpectedly, ends up becoming president when he's never really pursued that in his political career. But then, kind of the timing of things, he becomes the president of the United States. Now, the reason you've probably not heard much of him is a few months into his presidency, it wasn't long at all, he was assassinated. He didn't die immediately. It was a long, slow death that was probably brought on due to, basically doctors and those caring for him not practicing, not knowing common things that we know now to prevent disease and infection from setting in. Disease and infection set in as they were trying to get the bullet out and clean the wound, and they were making it worse. So probably a president that under modern medical practices, he probably would have survived and would have probably gone on to have been a pretty decent president. But history never gave him a chance, I suppose. The last book on this list is honestly very different from the other four. But if you're someone like me who struggles sometimes with biographies and how do I find someone to read about? Maybe you struggle with committing to reading about someone. This book right here, Titans of History, The Giants Who Made Our World by Simon Sebag Montefiore. Hope I'm saying his name right. Probably not. But it's a mini biography of, I think, over 100 different individuals who impacted the course of history in one way or another. He'll write anywhere from, it may be 3 to 6 or 7 pages on an individual, and it kind of gives you this little taste about who they were and what they did to impact the course of history. So if you have trouble trying to make a decision on who to read more about, this book right here will help you. It'll give you just a taste, and you may find out, for example, like he even writes about, like there's world leaders on the front, but you also have people on the back here like Albert Einstein, like Elvis Presley. So it's just a list of people that this writer believes have impacted or have changed the course of history for better or for worse. So it gives you a lot of ideas for individuals, for biographies that you can go read. So that is my list, my top 5 favorite biographies that I have ever read. And so tell me what you think about that. Have you read any of these 5? Or maybe do any of these 5 sound interesting to you? I'd love to hear that in the comments. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to watch this video, and I hope y'all have a good day, and I hope you read a good book.